Hi, and welcome back. In our previous video, I shared with you the 5 dysfunctions of a team from Patrick Lencioni and his team at the Table Group. In this video, I'm going to share with you an example of a team which I was a part of, which got through the 5 dysfunctions of a team assessment and ultimately started to work on their own team effectiveness. I was serving on the boards of directors of a not-for-profit organization. And at some point, we started to think about our board's effectiveness. We wanted to become better in order to serve the organization in a better way. One of my fellow board colleagues recommended us to go through the 5 dysfunctions of a team assessment and start working on ourselves systematically. So we hired the Table Group, and fortunately, one of their consultants started working with us on our personal journey to increase our team effectiveness. The very first step was for every single board member to respond to the 38 questions of the 5 dysfunctions of a team assessment. Once we all had responded, the consultant collected the results and shared them with all of us. Very quickly, it was transparent to every single member of our team where our biggest dysfunctions were. And as with many teams, it all started with an absence of trust. We were not doing really bad, but we were also not doing really good. And there are some reasons behind it. One of them was that we had a lot of fluctuation as part of our board. And whenever you have a lot of fluctuation, this means a lot of new people are coming in and some former members are rolling off. So you need to constantly build that trust. As a way to address the absence of trust and increase our team effectiveness, the consultant recommended us to do the following 2 things. First, every single board member was supposed to go through an MBTI personality assessment. It doesn't necessarily have to be an MBTI, but whatever personality assessment you select, everyone should go through the same in order to have a shared terminology. When we met for our next board meeting, the consultant asked each of us to share our MBTI personality assessment with everybody else. This took around 10 to 15 minutes per person, and all other board members were allowed to ask questions to dig deeper. This very simple exercise resulted in each of us get a better understanding of who we are, how we operate, and also share that understanding with our colleagues at the board. The second exercise went a bit deeper, and we did this in real time without any preparation. It's called the origin story. The consultant mentioned several questions. The first one being, where were you born? The second one, do you have siblings, and if yes, in which order do you come? And the third one, share an experience from your childhood which still shapes how you approach your work, how you approach your career. The first 2 questions are intentionally simple. Everybody can immediately respond to them. The third question is a bit more complex. You have to reflect. And when you respond, you basically open yourself up. You make yourself vulnerable to everybody else in that room. I don't know what was the reason, but the consultant started out with me and said, Sohrab, you go first. So my response, fairly simple. I started out. Where was I born? I was born in Tehran, Iran. I'm the first of 2 kids. I have a younger sister who is 21 months younger than I am. The third question was a bit more complex. I had to take some time and reflect on it. But then it became very obvious. The most fundamental thing that shaped my life until today was my parents taking my sister and myself and leaving our home country of Iran and moving to Germany. This immigration process was huge. We moved to a country where we didn't know the culture, we didn't know the language, we didn't know anybody, and we didn't have anything. And that resulted in me always thinking that I have to catch up. This feeling of having to catch up, of course, it fueled my motivation. It resulted in me studying harder. It resulted in me working harder. And at some point, I think I had caught up. But still, it was still there. I was still fighting on a daily basis. Sometimes more obvious, sometimes less obvious. So while I was sharing this story with the other board members, I saw 2 things happen. One, a lot of them could empathize with me. We had other board members that also went through this immigrant story. Another thing that I saw happen was that they started reflecting, maybe thinking about arguments that we had in the past. And at one point, one of them raised their hand. And I asked them, what do you want to share? And they said, now I understand why you always fight for the little guy, why you always fight for the minorities. And of course, that was my story. I realized myself why I was responding to certain situations in a certain way. After I was done, we went again through the room. Every single board member shared their origin story. And you can imagine that we all started to empathize with each other way more. You can also imagine that during our following breaks, we did not talk about business as usual. We dug deeper into the stories that our fellow board members had shared with us. And this little exercise, which cost us 2 hours of our time, resulted in much more trust. Now, did our trust level turn green from orange before? No. But it was the start of our story. It was the start of our shared journey towards becoming a more effective and more trusting team. The same approach you can take for every other step on that pyramid. When you're addressing the fear of conflict, there are assessments that give you a good understanding of what your preferred way of dealing with conflict is. Once you understand that, and once you share that, you can again build a shared terminology, a shared understanding, and ultimately go into conflicts with a different sense of how that conflict might turn out, and whether you should give someone else a bit more speaking time and dial your own tone a bit down. Step by step by step, a team can work on each of these dysfunctions and ultimately become much more result-oriented. But you can't stop at the top of the pyramid. You always start your climb at the bottom and then move up step by step. I hope this example of my own team, a team where I was part of, and we went through this journey one by one, helps you get a better understanding of how you can approach the 5 dysfunctions of a team assessment with your own teams. The book itself and the assessment give you a lot of ideas on how you can approach each of those steps. See you in our next video.